There's a moment just before everything changes, where your life still looks exactly the same. The same walls, the same routine, the same version of you moving through it all like nothing is shifting underneath. But something is. Just a feeling that sits in your chest and doesn't leave when you get busy. A pull towards something you can't fully see yet, but somehow already know. And the strange part is, it's not always fear that holds you there. Sometimes it's comfort, responsibility, the life you've already built with your own hands asking you to stay. Because choosing one thing often means changing another. And no one really talks about that part. The tension between what calls you forward and what's asking you to remain. So we learn to quiet it, to tell ourselves we'll do it later, when there's more time, more certainty, and more permission. But what if that moment never comes? Because maybe the question isn't just what do you want, it's what are you willing to change to have it? What if the life you're meant to build is waiting on the other side of a decision that you're not sure you're allowed to make? Welcome to What Would They Say? Today we are recording this conversation on Awabakal land that has been known, cared for and lived in deep connection with for tens of thousands of years, guided by purpose, by knowledge and by an understanding of what it means to belong. As we sit in conversation today about chasing what calls us and finding the courage to build a life around it, we honour the Awabakal people, the traditional custodians of this land and their enduring connection to land, water and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people listening today.
I've just gone my whole life having these heavy expectations on myself. It's a constant battle of trying to remember why you do what you do and why you started chasing the dream in the first place. When I'm on my deathbed, I don't think I'm going to be thinking about all the awards I won or all the number ones I achieved. I'm going to be thinking about my family. I just want to take in everything that I have actually achieved and acknowledge it. Okay, what is your definition of success, I guess, at the end of the day?
A few episodes ago, Megan and I found ourselves stuck on a question that felt a little too big to answer. Why is it that we can so easily give other people permission to chase the things they love, but when it comes to ourselves, it's layered with guilt, hesitation, and this quiet voice that tells us to stay where it is safe? So instead of trying to figure it out on our own, I wanted to sit down with someone who didn't just ask that question, but lived the answer. Someone who has dedicated her entire life to chasing down the things she loves. Today, I'm joined by Kirsty Lee Akers. Kirsty's story starts early, like really early. On stage as a kid, growing up in a family where music wasn't just something you did, it was something you lived. She busked to fund her first EP, built a career in country music from the ground up, and over the years has navigated not just living across continents, but the highs, the uncertainty, and the constant pressure that comes with turning passion into livelihood. But what I love about Kirsty's story is that it hasn't stayed in just one lane. You might have seen her on the block, stepping into a completely different kind of pressure, renovating, problem solving, and quite literally pouring herself into building something from the ground up. And that didn't stop once the cameras were put down. All while she's creating music on her own terms, independent, self-driven, and as a part of Rhindstoned. But beneath all of that, the question I really wanted to ask her, what does it actually look like to give your life to the thing you love? And more importantly, what does it cost you to do it? Welcome, Kirsty.
Thanks for having me. How exciting.
I'm excited to see your face.
Me too, not my own face, your face. Time flies, doesn't it? Oh my gosh.
It does. I have been watching the renos of your house as I drive past. The little guest house is looking amazing.
Yeah, it's getting there. All the hard stuff's done. I say the hard stuff, but everything's fucking hard around here. I say the hard stuff, but compared to other jobs we've done, the hard stuff is done. It's now like all the finishing off, which is just seems to take 10 times longer.
Do you guys butt heads on the little stuff?
Not really. I don't know. It's weird. We don't really have arguments. Like, we'll just call each other an idiot, or Jesse will say, "You're a banana," and then we just move on.
We'll get into the Reno side of it more in a minute, because I'm interested in that dynamic and I've got some questions here to ask you about it. But we'll start at the beginning. For the listeners, Kirsty, do you want to introduce yourself?
Well, hey everyone. I am Kirsty Lee Akers. I am a renovating powerhouse by day and country music singer by night, and during the week a singing teacher and a bunch of other stuff is also thrown in there along the way.
That was a very short and sweet version of that. What about Jesse? Introduce people to Jesse, because we're going to talk about him.
Yes, my husband Jesse. For anyone that watched the block, you would have seen my husband Jesse and I on the block back in 2021. So he is literally the jack of all trades. He started out as a fitter machinist. That's his trade. And then we opened a cafe together. So then he turned into a barista from there. And he's been renovating houses our whole relationship. We're doing owner builder now, renovating our place, so he's doing that at the moment, and he's also 1/3 of a member of the band that I'm in as well. So yeah, jack of all trades.
And he's currently on the roof and may make noise.
He is currently on the roof, and I'm wondering if he remembered or not. So we'll see.
It doesn't matter. We can work around it. So let's go back to the early days when cute little Kirsty was up there on this stage. How old were you when you first started chasing the thing that you obviously loved? Like, I know members of your family, music's been a big thing, but when did you know it was something like that was for you, that you wanted to make a career out of?
I don't think there was like a pivotal moment where I was like, oh my God, this is what I want to do with my life. I think it was just ingrained in me from the time I was born. I just didn't know any different because, as you mentioned, I come from a musical family. My mum and my nan and a few of my aunties, they all sang country music, and I literally just didn't know any different. It wasn't until I started school that I realized that not everyone's family was like that and sat around and sang country music and performed every weekend. I just thought that was, you don't know until you start school and you see your other friends and you're like, oh, okay, so maybe my family is a bit different to the others. So, yes, there was never just like a moment where I thought this is it. It was just from the very beginning. Like, I entered my first talent quest at 3 years old, and that was my life, like just growing up. I never had parents that were like, okay, you got to go to your room and practice after school. It was the other way. Like, they would be telling me to shut up because they wanted some peace from me singing constantly. So they never, ever had to force me to practice, like playing guitar or singing or anything like that, because I just lived and breathed it from the moment I was born, basically. And so I feel very lucky in that way, because I know there's a lot of people that go their whole life and they still don't figure out what they want to do. So I feel very lucky in that aspect. And at the same time, I always say I kind of wish I didn't have that, because my life would be so much easier if I just dreamed of working at Coles or something like that, because it would be much easier. But unfortunately, you got to take the good with the bad.
You do. So there is that romantic idea about following your dreams. And the reason that I wanted to talk to you about this is because Megan and I did a whole episode on giving ourselves permission to chase the things that we want. And we could come up with really good ideas of why we would encourage each other.
Yeah.
But we couldn't understand why we didn't give ourselves permission to do those things.
Yeah.
So I was like, I know who I'm going to ask about this question. So there is that romantic side of it. But what is the part that people don't see? What are the things that people don't understand when they're looking at your life, say, from the lens of you being on stage or through the lens of what they're seeing on social media? What's the actual reality look like?
Yeah, well, I guess for me, and I kind of feel like I'm a little bit different to most sort of artists chasing the dream, because I feel like I'm a lot more upfront about the crappy side of it. You know, people just mainly see the highlights on social media. That's what most people post about their lives, is the highlights. What they don't see behind closed doors is chasing a dream, especially one like this in the music industry. It's 10% highlights and 90% low lights, I think it is. But it's that little tiny, like, glimmer of hope that you hold on to. You know how good it is when the 10% is amazing, and that's what keeps you holding on. And I think it's got to be something, like, if it's a dream of yours, it's got to be something that, even if you never got paid a single dollar to do it, that it's not even a thought, you don't even think about it. Like, I often say to Jesse, like, I don't even think about money when it comes to, like, my music career and all these other things that I chase, because I'd still be doing it even if nobody knew who I was, or whatever, or if it didn't pay the bills, because it's literally just like so ingrained in me. My biggest fear, honestly, is like getting some kind of throat cancer or something like that where I lose my voice. I hear about artists that lose their voice, and I think to myself, I don't know how I would survive without being able to sing, because it's just such a part of my life. Like, I just sing constantly around the house. I don't even realize I'm doing it. So I think chasing the dream is so much easier when you do live and breathe it that way, because a lot of artists, what will happen is they have this dream, but they don't have that fire inside of them. So the first 10 knockdowns they get, that's when they call it quits. Whereas I feel like the ones that last and have longevity are the ones that literally just, they're delusional, like me. So you got to be delusional and just constantly get knocked over and knocked over and knocked over, and have so many doors shut in your face and keep going. It's the ones that, I guess, go into it thinking that they have this expectation of what it's going to be, and then when it doesn't happen like that in the first 6 months or whatever, then they call it a day and then they go do something else. The part that people don't see is just the knockbacks, but not just the knockbacks either. And especially for me, because I've grown up this Talent Quest kid my whole life, like all through school, I was a Talent Quest kid. I was the kid on the front page of the paper, you know, singing at different events and whatever. For me, it's this huge expectation I have of myself, and thinking, who am I if I'm not Kirsty Lee Akers, the country singer? And so the hard part is really just trying to find enjoyment outside of the achievements as well. And it's taken me 38 years to figure that out. I've just gone my whole life like having these like heavy expectations on myself, not so much from outside people, of if you don't have your own theme park like Dolly Parton, then you've failed, you know, that kind of thing. It's a constant battle of trying to remember why you do what you do and why you started chasing the dream in the first place. Because you've obviously got to have high expectations of yourself, because otherwise you don't have the drive to do what you want to achieve. But at the same time, you've also got to be realistic and think, okay, what is your definition of success, I guess, at the end of the day?
That drive that you talk about, do you have that in every area of your life, or is it more so leaning towards your music, or do you find that there's a level of perfectionism over everything that you do?
I think there's definitely a level of it in everything I do, but it is a lot, it's definitely strongest in music because that's what I live and breathe. But I know it's in every aspect of everything that I do. I think it's just a character trait that you must be born with or that you develop over time. I don't like going into anything unless I think I'm going to achieve at it, I guess. And I'm like one of these people that just won't give up until I do achieve it. Like, even when it comes to the block, we first applied in 2012 and we didn't get on until 2021. So as I mentioned earlier, you've got to be delusional and believe it's going to happen and don't give up until it happens. Because most people would apply for a reality show and they get kicked back the first time and then they go, oh, well, stuff it. Where I was like, well, no, they know who we are now, so let's go again. And then the next year, oh, they didn't pick us again. Okay, well, they know who we are even more now, so let's try again. And so I think it's just something ingrained in personality.
Talking about those disappointments, things like not getting onto the block, and I know that there have been some in your music career. Can you give me a high and a low moment? Like, what does a high look like for you, and what are some of the tougher things that you've had to face that you can talk about publicly?
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest high for me as an artist is being on a stage and performing to thousands of people and having them actually sing your song back. Because there's been plenty of times where I've sang on stages to thousands of people and no one has a clue who I am in the audience, and it's like they're just watching because they've brought their ticket and, you know. But when you're actually up there on the stage and they're singing your songs back to you, I think that is the absolute biggest high of being an artist, and that's what we're constantly chasing that feeling, because there's just no way to explain that feeling of, like, there's no drug in the world that could give you that feeling. And the lows, there have been so many lows. I don't even know where to start with the lows, especially in the music industry, and especially being a female in the music industry. I feel like our timeline is much different to a male artist. We have an expiry date that is much sooner than male artists. And even when I was 26 years old and trying to get a record deal in Nashville, I had record labels telling me I was already too old, and I was 26 years old. And I'm just like, are you serious? There's so many things like where you get your hopes, and I've built up this thing now where I really don't get my hopes up on something now until it officially happens. And I remember one really big low I had, and it's funny because you're actually connected to this story. So it was a big highlight and a big low at the same time. So I got offered the support act for Keith Urban. He was coming to Australia, and so I got offered the support act to play, you know, all the arenas around Australia with Keith Urban. I thought, wow, this is my big break. This is so amazing. And I remember that at the time, my manager and my agent that booked it, they kept saying to me, why aren't you excited? And I said, I'll get excited when I'm on the stage and it's actually happening, because I've had so many things fall through for me. I know how heartbreaking it is when you get your heart set on something and it doesn't happen. And they kept saying to me, no, you can get excited about this. This is 100% locked in. It's going to happen. And I'm like, wow, amazing. Got really excited, told all my family and friends. And then, of course, like many times before, it fell through. His record label decided to go with another artist that was signed to his record label because they've got to, you know, boost up their own artists, which I get. So I was left there just like, okay, now let's start again. Like, you put all your like eggs in this basket and think, this is my big break, this is going to happen, and then something like that happens. And honestly, for a good 6 months, I was just so miserable and cried every day thinking about this big opportunity that was so close that I missed out on. And it wasn't until, this is how you come into it. So Hannah Rye, I'm not sure if you've talked about her on the podcast, but
she has been mentioned, and I'm doing an episode with Rachel soon.
Yeah, so Hannah Rye is a beautiful girl from our local area, and unfortunately she passed away around that same time that all that happened. And I remember that's what brought me out of this feeling sorry for myself. I remember at the time just thinking, why am I like crying every day and not able to get out of bed and carrying on like a bloody idiot over something like this, when there is this beautiful young girl who hasn't even made it to her 16th birthday that would probably give anything just to be laying in her bed crying like I am right now. Why am I doing this? Like, and honestly, that's what pulled me out of it at the time. I was just like, why am I laying here feeling sorry for myself? Like, I know Hannah would be here. She'd be loved to be doing what I'm doing right now. And I'm laying here thinking, oh, I want to die. I can't believe Keith Urban didn't take me on tour. Like, it's really weird how those things turn out.
Funny, actually, I did an interview a couple of weeks ago with Dan, who was in your film clip that we recorded in the little valley out here near home. He's traveling around Australia at the moment, and I mentioned something about Hannah and the impact that she had on me, about how I didn't care so much about what my house looked like, or the thing that she taught me was about creating memories, and that's the only stuff that you can take with you. And he was like, do you know I was in the ride? Like, he said, are you talking about Hannah Rye? And I said, yeah. And he said, I was in that ride. Now, Dan didn't, that there was no connection to us. There was no, like,
Yeah,
it is
crazy.
incredible how much that little girl affected the people around her.
It is crazy. And, you know, as I said earlier, time flies. Like, it does feel like yesterday, but only at the same time it's been a lot of time has passed since then, and she's still affecting people's lives. Like, yeah, it's just, and I kind of believe that these sort of people come into your life for a reason. Like, there is a reason that she was a part of my life, and there's a reason she's a part of your life. And I think we will go the rest of our lives constantly understanding why our paths did cross at certain times.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I wonder if it's only a certain type of person who notices that. It's something that I think about a lot, where it tends to be people who feel deeply and are super passionate, who get affected by this stuff. And there's times where I'm in bed, upset, crying over something that's way more ridiculous than not being taken on tour with Keith Urban, just to be frank. That's something worth crying about. But I think I wouldn't give that up. I wouldn't give up being that type of person who will notice somebody who inspires me, and that lesson will keep coming back to me over and over again. I wouldn't give that up to be somebody who didn't sometimes wake up and want to cry in bed.
Yeah, definitely. Makes us who we are.
Obviously, every time a knockback comes, you don't end up with a Hannah Rye in your life. How do you manage to keep going?
Yeah, definitely. I'm very lucky that I have the support system I do. I had a massive mental breakdown last weekend on the lounge with Jessie, and we just had a 20-minute conversation, and it felt like 10 years of therapy in one conversation, and a weight had been lifted off my chest. And I said, I honestly don't know what I'd do if I didn't have you in my life, because there'd be so many people that are doing what I'm doing that don't have a Jessie in their life, and I honestly don't know how they get through it. So as much as, I'm a big, strong, independent woman, I'm very dependent on that man that keeps me sane and is always there to constantly make me believe in myself and pull me back from the edge so many times. I honestly don't know where I'd be if we weren't together, and I'm very lucky to have that support system. Outside of that, also, besides just being delusional and believing that, this dream I have is going to come true, I often think back just to that little girl that lived and breathed country music. And I remember being a kid and thinking about, when I think about awards and radio charts and number one hits and all that sort of stuff, that wasn't even a thought in my mind when I was a kid singing in my bedroom. So I have to try and take myself back to that little girl sometimes. And every now and again when I think about giving up and I'm like, oh, stop this, I'm so sick of this, I think to myself, that little girl in her bedroom singing country music, she was doing it because she lived and breathed it. She wasn't doing it because she wanted to win Female Artist of the Year or she wanted to do this or whatever. And I also think about, my family and what a big support they've been for me my whole life. And I think especially about the women in my family. They were all very talented. My nan was an amazing country singer. My mum was an amazing country singer. And my mum fell pregnant with me at 16. My nan was the same. She was pregnant as a teenager, had 7 kids. And I feel like what you were talking about earlier, why do we give other people permission to chase their dreams, but we find it hard for ourselves? And I think for me, growing up, I watched all the women in my family not give themselves that permission and not chase their dreams. And so I think even when it comes to not having kids, that's a big part of why I chose not to have children as well, because from the moment I even thought about this being a dream, I was just constantly, this is what I'm doing. Nothing's going to get in my way. Nothing's going to slow me down. Nothing's going to hold me back. So think about them a lot, I guess, and how they weren't able to chase their dream. And they also didn't give themselves permission to chase that dream. And so whenever I think about giving up, I go back to those kind of thoughts, I guess.
We mentioned a little bit about sacrifice and how generations have progressed. And I talked about Elsie. So Kirsty was Elsie's singing teacher. So she knows Elsie when I say Elsie. Even the difference between her and me, here I am at 40 something, 46 this year, And it's the first time I've been able to give myself permission to chase something that I wanted. And
Yeah.
I think prior to that, everything was about the kids. And, this is the first time I've had the space and the capability to do that. And so we talked a little bit about sacrifice. But there are still women out there with children who have incredibly satisfying lives and careers. But I'm so interested in that generational shift where, like, our mums are a similar age.
Yeah.
And our nens would be too. There was no role models really for them
Yeah.
to sort of say you can go out and do it. And our generations come through, and television, social media, all of those things. I wonder what it's going to be like for the next generation, the young
Yeah.
girls that are doing singing with you now. And I know what an impact you had on Elsie, but for those young women coming through and looking at women who have made those choices and said, yes, I deserve
Yeah.
the things that I want as well. So I hope to see that shift a little bit more. Elsie's tenacious and sassy and an
Yeah.
absolute pain in my ass the majority of the time.
That's what you want, though. Go on to rule the world.
That is exactly right. And if you can survive it as a mum, it is the exact kind of daughter that you want. I reckon your mum would probably say the same thing.
Yeah, well, I say it to my sister because we live totally different lives. Her life is all about being a mum, and her little girl Willow is so sassy, like the sassiest little thing you've ever met, and gives Caitlin like absolute headache. And I say to her, it's that sass that's gonna stop her from being shit on and be pushed over, and is gonna make her go on to do the things that we didn't do. So don't let her lose that. As much as you want her to behave, you want that sass in there.
Yeah. With you talking about the longevity of females' careers,
Yeah.
I think there's some of that plays into it too. Just the way that women are viewed in professional circles. Like if a man comes in and he's assertive, people respect him. If a woman comes in and she's driven and assertive and, is taking up space in a room, the feedback isn't always as nice as what it is for a man.
Oh, 100%. And I face it all the time in this industry because I often say I should have been born a man because I feel like my personality is much more aligned with being a man. I'd probably be a drag queen because there's no way I could not, have all the glamour of it. But I feel like that has not been in my favor in the music industry because a lot of the ones that are making the decisions and choosing who is getting to the top and who isn't don't like loud women. They don't. They want to take an artist that will do as they're told, they can mold, and will be what they want them to be. And I have just never been that person. I've tried it in the past and it doesn't work. Like, it does not work. At the end of the day, I would rather have a failed music career and know that I was 100% myself and did what I wanted to do than to have to be something that I'm not.
Yep. I can't even for a second pretend to imagine what it'd be look like for you to pretend to be an agreeable woman.
I know, and why does no one want to work with me?
Thank God for independent music, hey?
No, thank God. And, often I do sometimes thinking, if I had a big record label, it'd be so much easier. But at the end of the day, I know I would hate it. Like, I know I would absolutely hate it because I've gotten to a point now where I have had the big record label in the past. I've been signed to Sony and labels like that. But I was never able to be the true 100% artist that I'm able to be as an independent artist. So, it's great to have a label that will bankroll your career. But at the same time, it's even better to be able to be the artist that I want to be and not have to sort of answer to a panel of people and be told that you've got to, shut down your personality a bit or not say this, not say that, because, I wouldn't last 5 minutes having to do that.
I don't know how creative people can, like how...
I often wonder the same thing.
Yeah, you pour so much of yourself into the art that you make and then somebody tells you need to change it. It's...
Yeah.
It's like just looking you in the face and saying, "You're not actually enough." I think it's really cruel.
It is, and that's what artists are faced with every single day. I cannot tell you how many times I've been told you're not enough of this or you're too much of that. But luckily, I was born with that strong-headedness that's like, shut up, I'm not going to listen to you.
Yeah.
That has got me where I
Yeah.
am now.
So that was the drive then around doing the block. What was the passion that pushed you in that direction?
Well, I think there is a real creative side to renovating. People think it's just hammering nails and things like that, but at the end of the day, like, the interior design side of it is my favorite bit. Like, if I never had to pick up a hammer again, that'd be great. But I really love the interior design side of it. And Jesse and I brought our first house together when we were 18, and we renovated it, and we made a little bit of money off that. And we thought, oh, maybe we could do this as like a side career thing. And so we bought another house and another house, and we definitely didn't make money on every single house that we did. Like, there was houses where we lost money, and it was just the wrong location and the wrong time to sell a house, but we learnt a lot along the way. And I think because we both literally come from nothing. Like, when I say we come from nothing, we come, like, I mean, it wasn't Dolly Parton rubbing rocks together to get like a bit of rouge on the cheeks, but there was hard times. Like, I remember when we never had a car, so we had to catch a bus everywhere, and things like that. Jesse grew up with a single mum his whole life, and who was raising 3 kids on her own. So I think that drive inside of us, and that's why we work together so well, is we've had this constant drive to want a better life for ourselves and want something bigger and better than what our parents were able to give us, that they could have only dreamed of giving us. And so I think when it comes to the block, we saw that as an amazing opportunity, because there's been people on it that have won absolutely life-changing money, and it's very short-term pain for long-term gain. So I think everything that we've always done has always come from this wanting a better life for ourselves, basically, and wanting that life that we dreamed about as kids.
What was it like? Like, I know Jesse's always been in the background of your music career, but then to move into, well, it was basically straight away a public space where you were then working together. What was that like as a couple? And I want to preface this with, Jesse is one of the best humans I know.
Yeah.
Like, he's in my top 5 of all time humans. He
He's up
is,
there with Scott.
yeah, he's the kindest, most generous, such a pure heart. He's one in a million. And he was not used to the limelight. He wasn't used to being in front of a camera. So it was a big stretch for him, like, to have a camera in your face all the time while you were doing that. And how did that affect the dynamic of your relationship?
It wasn't so much hard for me going in and doing that, because I've always, been in front of a camera and performing. For him, it was really hard, because he's always just preferred to be in the background. He's never been the personality that wants to be in the limelight. And I think it just shows the kind of person he is, because he is that kind of person that will put himself so far out of his comfort zone to try and benefit me and, push my career further. And so when it comes to the block, I guess he just thought, oh, what's she got us into now? But like he does everything else, goes along with it, because he's just such a supporter of everything that I do, and he wants me to achieve my dreams. So I guess, even though we share the same dreams, a lot of his, if we weren't together, he would be living out in the bush and come into town once a month and buy his groceries and go back in the bush and live off the land. That would be what Jesse would be doing. But because his love of me, he has to do all this other stuff and put himself out of his comfort zone. So it just makes me love him even more, like, just knowing that he's willing to be that uncomfortable to see me achieve and to see us achieve. Because there'd be a lot of people to be like, no, stop that, I'm not doing that. But he constantly, puts himself in these positions that he would never choose to do on his own, to better us as a couple and to help push my career further. So I think it just made our dynamic even stronger, I guess. And it was hard. Like, people don't realize when you go on a reality show that it actually is like 24/7, a camera in your face. Even when the crew goes home, you've got GoPros set up on you. And if you dare turn that GoPro off, you're in big trouble. So, except for the time you're asleep, you literally just have a camera in your face constantly. And we were so naive. We went into it thinking, we didn't even think about it being a TV show. We just thought about it as, we're going in to renovate a house. And we couldn't understand, like, we'd be in the middle of painting and we'd get called away to come and film some stupid little skit for a sponsor. And we'd be like, but I'm painting a wall. What do you mean you want me? And then the producers would remind us, this is a TV show. Just so you know, this is a TV show first. We don't care if the house gets renovated or not. It's about the content for the TV show. And it was so hard for us to wrap our heads around it. And I think that's why we didn't get involved in any of the drama on the show as well, because we were just like, we're here to renovate a house. Like, what do you mean you want us to come and talk about drama? Like, yeah, so it was really hard in the beginning, getting our head around it all.
What does success look like for you guys now?
You know, if you'd asked me this even 6 months ago, it'd be totally different. As I said, it's taken me 38 years to get to this point. And one of the questions you asked me earlier made me think of this. My whole life, I've constantly been like, achieve this, achieve this. Once you achieve that, you got to achieve the next thing, and then you got to achieve the next thing. And I've never actually just like enjoyed the moment and appreciated what I've achieved, because I'm just thinking about the next thing that I want to achieve and ticking that off the bucket list. And it's gotten to the point now where music isn't becoming enjoyable for me. And so Jesse and I were talking about this last weekend. I was just like, I have these such high expectations of myself, but at the same time I need to be realistic. Like, I have these high expectations that I want to be worldwide famous, and I want to play in arenas, and I want to be the next Dolly Parton, but at the same time I don't want to leave my family. I want to be with my family. I want to watch my nieces and nephews grow up. I want to sit around a fire every weekend, and when I'm on my deathbed, I don't think I'm going to be thinking about all the awards I won or all the number ones I achieved. I'm going to be thinking about my family and the times we spent together. And it's honestly taken me this long to realize that. And my idea of success now is so different compared to what it was, as I said, even 6 months ago. So I think sometimes you have to take a break and step back sometimes. And this is what I'm literally in the process of doing now. So even though people might see me doing random stuff here and there on social media, since the beginning of this year, I really have taken a step back from music in the public life and releasing music and doing gigs and that sort of thing, just to realize what it is that I actually want, what I want for our life. And I'm at a point now where I think I just want to take in everything that I have actually achieved and acknowledge it. Like, in my head, the way my brain works, I've constantly been like, yeah, but you haven't achieved this, so that's nothing. That cancels all that out because you haven't achieved this thing over here. Where now I'm trying to think, okay, you actually need to acknowledge the things that you have achieved, because there'd be people out there looking at me dying to have a career like I've got, and I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm nobody because I haven't won a Grammy. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yep.
I have to constantly remind myself, like, what it is that I actually do want, and not live my life to the expectation that I have on myself. I think I've told myself all this time, my whole life since I was a kid, that everyone expects you to be number one. You need to achieve this, you need to achieve that. And I expect that of myself too. But at the end of the day, I'm like, but is that what really is going to make me happy? Like, does that actually make me happy? And I think about the times when I truly am happy, when I'm literally just sitting around at a family event and watching my nieces and nephews play. And I think about that kind of happiness compared to like the happiness of an achievement. And I have to remind myself that, like, what true success actually is probably a little bit different now to what I always imagined. So I think success for us now is just getting to a point where we can enjoy life. We have just worked our butts off since I moved out of home when I was 18, like pretty much the moment I turned 18, I moved out of home, and Jesse and I had already been saving for a house together before that. We got together when we were 16. He literally saved every single cent he got from work as a fitter. He started his apprenticeship when he was 16 years old, and he would save every single cent, and still lived at home, obviously, because he was a teenager. So as soon as we turned 18, a lot of people think, oh, mum and dad must have helped them. My mum lives in housing commission. My dad lives in a cabin. We didn't come from money at all. They, as much as they would have loved to have helped us buy our first house, we had to do it all on our own. And so literally from that moment of being teenagers buying a house together, we just haven't stopped. We honestly haven't stopped. We've worked constantly, like one achievement after the other, trying to get to a point that we dream of. And now we have to remind ourselves that I think we're almost at that point now. So now we can start to sort of strip back a bit and start enjoying life, because we just haven't been able to for so long, because we've just been so, goal focused. We've got to do this, we've got to do that. And so I think by the end of this year, I really hope that our version of success now will be actually living it.
If you had to do it again, would you do it the same way?
Of course, I'm an idiot. I think I would, but obviously there are things you learn along the way that you might do differently. I would hope that it wouldn't take me as long to get to this point of how I feel now. I would hope that if I was to do it again, I could learn that a little bit earlier in life. I remember, because I started out music so early, like I was signed to my first record deal and released my first album when I was 18, and I went into it so young and naive with stars in my eyes. And at that time, you are just the kind of person that does what you're told, and you don't know any different, really, I guess. So I guess if I was to do it again, obviously I have the wisdom now to not ever put myself in a position where I'm going to be uncomfortable and doing something that I don't want to do. I spent a long time in my career doing something I didn't want to do because that's just what you're told you're meant to do. And I've had working relationships that I've kept way longer than what I should have, out of loyalty and because you don't want to rock the boat. And it's wasted time, I guess. So I think if I was to do it again, yeah, I would do pretty much the same, but obviously have that wisdom of being wiser and, yeah, just not taking shit from day one instead of waiting until I was 27.
The boss bitch would have come out earlier.
Yeah, definitely.
If one of the kids who are in your singing groups was to come to you now and say, should I do the same thing you did? What advice would you give them?
Man, this is really hard because I do think about this a lot, because I have a student who is my best friend's little boy, Madden, and we are so similar. We often joke that he should have been my son because, like, we even look alike when we were kids. It's so weird. And Emily often says, like, the universe must have known you weren't going to have children, so they sent me Madden so we could raise him together, because it's crazy how similar we are in so many ways, personality, and he is such a talented little kid, and I see him going on to be this big superstar, and it's what he wants as well. But at the same time, I see how fragile and precious his little heart is, and I pray that he isn't set up for a life of being brokenhearted, trying to learn to live with disappointment, because there's so many disappointments that come with this career. So there's so many times where I say to Emily, we need to figure out a way to not crush his dreams while he's young now, but obviously set him up to a point where he knows that there might be a time where he isn't the cute little singer that everyone wants to see on stage, because there's only that for so long. And I experienced that myself as a kid, being little and cute and having a big, powerful voice. And then you get to a point where the next cute little kid comes along and you're not as shiny and bright anymore, I guess. So I often say to her, we've got to figure out a way so he understands that there is going to be moments like that where he's not always going to be number one, I guess, because I think it's those ones that go into it not realizing that really struggle. So, of course, if one of my students came to me now asking, should they do it? I would, of course, say yes, because if you've got this dream inside of you, then definitely you need to chase it. You don't want to get to the end of your life and wonder what if. That's always been my biggest thing, I guess, is when it's really hard, I always think to myself, but what if I don't? I'm going to be constantly thinking, what if? So I guess, yeah, my advice would be just to enjoy the moments along the way, I guess, and not just be constantly in this tunnel of I've got to achieve this and I've got to achieve the next thing and this next thing. Like, actually enjoy the moments as they happen, because that's what I often think back to, like, early on in my career. I had a lot of big achievements. When I was 16, I won a big competition that got me a trip to Nashville, and I got to songwrite with some of the biggest songwriters in the world, and I got to go to the Grand Ole Opry as a special guest. And I was so young at the time, I didn't appreciate the opportunity that was. I thought, oh yeah, this is just normal. Like, every 18-year-old kid from Curry High School that's never been on a plane before gets to go to Nashville and write with Grammy Award songwriters. Like, I just didn't even understand at the time. Like, I was too young to appreciate how big that was at the time. So I guess my advice would be to really just soak in those moments and really acknowledge those achievements, because back then I didn't even think of that as like a great achievement, like, which is so weird because I look back on it now and think, how many 18-year-olds from a small town like Curry that grew up with teenage parents that come from a housing commission, had like literally come from nothing, getting paid to go to Nashville and write songs with like Grammy Award songwriters and record with Grammy Award winning producers. Like, that just doesn't happen every day. But at the time I was like, yeah, this is just normal, I guess, whatever. So I think, yeah, advice would be to really go for those dreams, but when you achieve them, to really soak it in before you start moving on to the next one. And also understand that it's okay to take a break. Like, it's okay to step back from something. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm stepping back from something because it was getting to a point where I wasn't in love with it anymore. And I was only saying to my family last night in a group chat, if I don't take a step back for a minute, I could disappear forever and not ever bother with it again. Whereas if I just take a step back and find the love for it again, I know it's going to be so much better. And a lot of artists get this thing in their head, and I'm guilty of it myself, is you have this ticking, time, especially when you're a female artist, of, well, I can't take 6 months off from music because then I'll be forgotten about. I can't not post anything on social media for 6 months because then I'll be forgotten about. And I'm so guilty of that. But I've finally gotten to a point where I think, well, too bad. If it's not meant for me, it's not meant for me. If these dreams that I have are meant for me, then they're gonna happen. And if not, then there's something else. There's another door out there waiting for me to open.
I think some of that comes with age and experience, and some of those lessons that we talked about earlier, where I don't think you understand what's important until you're shown.
100%, yeah. And I often think we should age the other way around because it's, you think about, you're given all these opportunities when you're young and your brain's it hasn't formed properly to even make the right decisions that you're meant to make. And it's not until you finally live this life and you learn these lessons that you go, wow, okay.
There's a lot of downsides to getting older, but wisdom is not one of them.
Oh, definitely.
Kirsty, thank you, not just for sharing your story, but for being so honest about what it actually looks like to build a life around the things you love. I think there's a version of this conversation that sounds really inspiring, and then there's the truth of it. The choices, the pressure, the constant balancing of who you are and who you are becoming, and you have given us a little glimpse into both.
Oh, thanks for having me.
If people are listening to this and feel that pull and they want to follow along on your journey or what's to come with your music, or even they want to check out what you've already done and everything you're creating, where is the best place for people to find you?
Well, these days, social media, of course. So across all of those, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, as much as I cringe when I say TikTok, Kirsty Lee Akers.
You guys are so funny.
Honestly, it's crazy that we live in this world now where we can't really survive without it, but I would much prefer to go back to being able to survive without it. But at the same time, it enables you to have an independent music career without needing a big record label. So I just need to shut up and not whinge about it. So you can find me on all of those social media platforms, and of course my website, which is www.kirstyleeakers.com.
I will link all of these things in our show notes as always, which you will find at ifthesetreescouldtalk.com.au. And for anyone listening, if something in this conversation stayed with you, maybe sit with that, because sometimes the things we can't shake are the things that we are meant to pay attention to.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode. If These Trees Could Talk and What Would They Say are productions of Bellevue Studio. Our host is Shannon Walters, executive and audio production by Megan Anderson, with socials and marketing managed by Mia Oberdorf. We always appreciate hearing your thoughts, so if you would like to support the show, you can rate, review and subscribe. To stay up to date between episodes, you can also find us on Instagram, Facebook and TikTok. For more information on this episode or to connect with our guests, you'll find everything you need to know in the show notes at ifthesetreescouldtalk.com.au. We're grateful to have you with us, and we look forward to sharing what comes next. Thanks for being here.